I bought this guy for £192 for a chain waxing kit. That is very expensive really, but it does promise a lot of things, and it promises to make chain waxing even easier than it already is. So I've been using this for the past 3 weeks as much as possible on my chains to see if it's actually any good, and I'm going to relay that information onto you. So first of all, I'm going to get into how it works, but if you want to skip to any chapters ahead, they'll be linked at the bottom below. Let's get into the review of this thing. First of all, let's talk about what it's supposed to do and why it's more expensive than every other chain waxing unit on the market. First things first, it's supposed to heat up really, really fast. So it's meant to be 10 minutes, full cycle, done. They achieve that by a very wide, flat base, so there's lots of surface area to heat up the wax very quickly, basically. Rather than most pots, which are quite deep, and there's lots of wax in the center that takes a while to melt down. This obviously avoids that problem. Its second party trick is that it vibrates, quite literally vibrates. So this mixes the wax. As most of you will know, most brands don't just use like a plain paraffin. They have additives in there that you're supposed to mix around when the wax is melted. And these additives basically reduce friction even further within the chain. So this quite literally vibrates to A, mix that wax, and B, make sure that it penetrates deep into the chain. Because really you only need wax on the inside. So yeah, this makes sure, or tries to make sure, that it does get inside the chain basically. So first of all, let's talk about these guys because I want to tell you how to use the thing first. The online instructions are a bit meh, although it's pretty simple to do. First of all, you've got to wrap your chain in one of these. Well, you don't have to, but they're provided with a kit and they're quite easy to use. Basically, there's a slot in here. You drop your chain through there and you start wrapping it around the center. The outsides of this plastic, well, it's quite like a flexible plastic, so you can see that it splits quite a lot there. It's quite easy just to pull it into that section. All you have to do is separate it and keep wrapping the chain inside there. It does grip onto it quite nicely and it holds the chain in there pretty well. And actually, by the time you've ended up folding and trying to feed like a spoke or the cable through with the normal systems that we're used to, realistically, it's actually about the same amount of time. Now, you'd think that this holds onto a lot of wax when you pull it out, but we'll go into that a little bit later. You might be surprised. Then we get into how to actually use the machine itself, and this is also very simple as well, more than you'd think. There's a switch at the back that you use to turn the system on. Then to get the process going, you literally press the big button on the front, it will bleep and start flashing. A solid light means that it's not in process, a flashing light means that it is in process. From there, literally put your chain on and leave it. It does everything else itself. It heats up itself, it then vibrates when it's ready, when the wax is up to temperature. It will start vibrating after about 10 minutes or so. We'll get into times a little bit later. And then when it's done, it will just give you 2 bleeps and finish. You take your chain out, put it in the resting section and let it cool down and harden. Again, it's as simple as that. Okay, so let's get into their first claim. It claims it does the whole cycle in about 10 minutes, melts the wax and vibrates and it's done. In reality, it's a little bit longer. The quickest one I've had has been about 13 minutes. The slowest one I've had has been about 16 minutes. And you can see on the slowest one that I've done here, it took about, 13 minutes, 45 seconds for the wax to fully melt and for it to know that it's up to temperature. And then it spends about 2 minutes, 15 seconds of vibrating. So timing wise, it is a little bit longer than it claimed. Realistically, for me, still fast enough. I'm not that bothered by it being perfect. It probably will do that if you have like the perfect scenario. Maybe it's already 30 degrees inside the building that you're in, kind of hot. I don't know how they tested that, but yeah, that 10 minutes must be the perfect scenario. But realistically, from cold, from a solid block of wax, anywhere from 13 to 16 minutes. The good part though is that every new chain that you put in, about 4 to 5 minutes. It spends about 3 minutes just leaving the temperature at the same temperature, and then it does another 2-minute vibration cycle, and then it will give you 2 bleeps again, and you're ready to go. So yeah, if you're doing lots of chains in one, like I do, like I have my time trial bike, my road bike, my partner's bike here, and when you're doing like 3, 4, 5 chains in one go, this is a rapid system, and I love it. Just put your next chain in, press the button, leave, wait for it to bleep. Next, 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 done. So the temperature that it heats up to, I have no idea. Realistically, my thermometer kept turning off as it was getting warmer. So I haven't been able to find the exact pull-out temperature for you. But realistically, anywhere from 75 to 90 degrees Celsius is perfect for pulling out a wax chain. And as many of you know, when you start riding or even start just turning the pedal indoors when you first wax the chain, a lot of the wax comes out anyway, so actually you don't need as much in there as you quite think. Realistically for me, I think this pulls out at a slightly higher temperature, maybe closer towards the 90 degrees Celsius temperature, just because I find not as much wax comes out when I start riding afterwards. But trust me, there is still plenty of wax in there. So I think as an automatic system, it is perfectly fine, to be honest, and there is zero complaints from me on this section. Okay, I promise I'm about to get onto the vibrating section in a second, but there's one more thing I want to talk about, and that is the drying rack section. At first, I was like super worried. I saw this thing and I was like, that's just gonna clog up with wax over time. That's going to look rubbish as the excess drips off. Some excess obviously does drip off the chain and the chain holder into that drying section, but realistically all you have to do is flex the silicone. The top cap, the rubber bit, comes off. Just pop it out and it comes off. Like, the wax doesn't stick to it at all once you flex the silicone. So cleaning that drying rack section is like super easy, and it keeps the rest of everything else nice and clean. So you don't have to hang the chain anywhere or hang it above the actual melted wax to let it drip back in. So actually it worked a lot better than I thought it would. Then you get onto these guys. I thought these were gonna hold on to like tons of wax. I was like, this is just gonna clog up with wax, and when you take the chain out, lots of flakes are gonna go everywhere. You'll be amazed to know that these don't hold on to wax like you think they do. Here's a close-up of some that I've used time and time again. I haven't scraped anything off. This one specifically here has been through about 5 chains already in the past few weeks. And yeah, I thought the wax was gonna really stick to these things, and they just don't. I was amazed. Now, you do get some flaking when putting the chain out, just because as you take it out, you're basically breaking the chain. Or well, you're breaking the initial wax bond in the chain, and it does flake a little bit, to be honest. So expect some wax chips on your floor if you're taking it out. But because they're hard and dry, they do hoover up very easily and they don't get stuck to the floor. But yeah, these things themselves, wax doesn't really stick to them. It does a little bit, but not like you think it would. And of course, if you still want to use the loop through version and hang it somewhere else, you can do. Okay, so I said I wanted to talk about the vibrations as well, review this bit too. So initially, because they sponsored GCN released a video and showed the process a little bit. This was like in January, long time ago. Zero Friction Cycling, like the master of chain waxing, he was initially worried about this vibration process because he saw in the GCN video as it was vibrating, effectively it wasn't mixing the wax, it was just vibrating the wax back and forward, and you could see where the additives in the wax were basically settling in certain locations and not really mixing into the wax. Well, here's why I think this was delayed so much. This is just a hypothesis. I'm not saying this is why, but basically I think they were just trying to get those vibrations perfect so that the wax actually mixed and flowed in the system to get it inside the chain. Basically the wax was no longer settling. They needed to get the wax actually mixing. And I think, yeah, they had to try and get this vibration system right, and they weren't releasing it until it was, because it's quite an expensive item and it's one of the flagship features of it. And I'm happy to say that when you just leave it, the wax does mix. You will see as it's melting, the wax is, well, it's kind of clear and you can see the chain through the wax. But as it starts vibrating, the wax literally goes cloudier and cloudier with the additives that are in there, and you can no longer see the chain once the vibration cycle has finished. Personally, I do give it a little swirl to make sure that the mixed wax does get inside the links, at just like 5 seconds, 10 seconds. It's not any more work on top really. I don't think you have to do it. I'm just pedantic. But the next good thing that I do see with the vibrations is the fact that even though the chain has been in there for a while, even if I give it a little swirl, when it vibrates, I can see air bubbles coming out of the chain. This is really cool. So to me, it probably, I'm guessing here, but it probably does pack more wax on the inside of the chain, just because in that vibration cycle, you get the air bubbles coming out of the chain. So I'm here for it. I like the vibrations. I think it works well. It just means that everything on the inside of the chain should have wax inside of it. So are there any negatives that I could pick up on this thing? The answer is yes, they're a little bit nitpicky, but there are some things. So first of all, you use this to make sure that you're not touching the chain and the wax pod here because, well, first of all, it'll be hot, and secondly, you'll get wax over your hands. So there are two little holes in there, and you use this clip, and this just clips in and out, and it just means you use this one thing for multiple systems there. I will be honest, it's a little bit flimsy. Now, does it feel sturdy enough to me to use? Yeah, it's plenty sturdy enough. When you have the chain and the wax in there, it does feel like it sags quite a little bit on this little plastic clip. It's just a bit flimsy. I think it will last. It seems like there's enough plastic on there and should be robust enough, but yeah, a little bit flimsy. And I guess we'll see if it lasts in the long run. Complaint number one. Number two, again, kind of a minor complaint. If you don't want to use these, you can use the normal looping system if you want to and just leave the chain in there. That of course is going to work just fine, but there is nowhere to hang those chains if you do use that system, so you're going to need like a separate hook, and there's nowhere to hang it above the pot so the excess drips back into the pot. Again, minor complaint because you're supposed to be using the system that's designed for it, but yeah, something very nitpicky and very, very minor. Finally, the last complaint or thing that might not work for you is if you use the Silka strip chip. Now I know Silka is not part of their brand, so they don't need to integrate this into their system. But if you don't know what the strip chip is, basically it's a chip that you put in with a fresh chain, one that you haven't taken the grease off yet. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to heat it up to 125 degrees Celsius, leave it for 10 minutes, and this chip basically combines with the factory grease of the chain in a process that's called oleogelation, and it needs to be a bit hotter to do this, and then you bring the temperature down and then pull it out. And basically it turns that factory grease into a wax really, and it's just used as a normal wax in the chain from there forward. Very cool system, quite a hassle-free way to do things, but obviously with this thing there is no temperature control, so you're stuck to the temperatures that Cyclowax give you, which is my guess about 90 degrees. Sorry, my thermometer's broke. I don't know the exact temperature that it likes to pull out at. But yeah, to get that effect you need to heat it up to higher temperatures just to make that happen, and that's not an option on this thing. Would I recommend buying this thing with all of those things considered? And my answer actually is yes. I actually like it. The heat up speed is fantastic. The vibrations I've actually got along with really, really well and worked far better than I was expecting them to. Now, obviously, if you already have a wax pot, is it worth spending £200? Maybe not. I guess I did it to review it, but now that I have it, I really like it. I do really like it. And I know it's expensive, but it gets the big thumbs up from Cycling Unboxed. Basically because it makes the process really quick and easy. So there we have it guys, my review of the Cyclowax Professional Chain Waxing Unit. If you have any specific questions that you think I've missed in this video, feel free to put them in the comments down below. I reply to most things that go in there, or you can find me over here on Instagram where you can follow my daily shenanigans or find out what's coming up. Other than that, I've been Jason, this has been Cycling Unboxed. I'll see you in another video.